And when we started yesterday, talked about how Gershon Yabusele taking that final roster spot. Well, I lied. Maybe Daryl Morey does have a spot for Kyle, Derek, myself, with that final,
I don't think so. Not for us.
roster spot for the Philadelphia 76ers. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Tuesday, and it's a Mailbag Tuesday edition here on this Tuesday. So while we'll talk about, I'm sure, Yabusele at some point, just mentioning his name, we have a lot to get into. Many people have sent in some questions via mailbag questions here for us on this Tuesday. So we're going to answer some of those as we go along. We also want to tell everybody, first of all, welcome. Not just to the regular people that when we say welcome as we've built this community, but welcome also because we have a new partner.
Our new overlords at Roku.
Yes, and it is Roku TV. We are now a part of Roku TV, and we are thrilled to be a part of Roku TV, where we're going to have a PHLY-centric channel for all the shows from the Union, Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, and of course here with the Sixers. So we will be with you on a daily basis on Roku TV. So when you've seen us over the past couple of weeks and we've taken our breaks like we normally do, but I might simply say, hey, we'll come right back.
We've been trying to be a little more professional, a little tighter. You know, we're trying to lock in to help support, to work as well as we can with our new friends at Roku. So thank you to the team at Roku getting us up and running. And as far as you guys are concerned, nothing really changes.
Nothing changes.
It is just, it's another way for you guys to access our shows, our content. If it's not on YouTube, if it's elsewhere, you can get it on Roku in the app. Just search for PHLY Sports.
Yep.
Very easy. So shout out to them. And away we go into the new era.
24/7 Philly sports content on Roku TV. Could not be prouder to do this with the whole team here at PHLY Sports. Brenna is in here filling in for Bree today, and we appreciate Brenna doing double duty, Flyers action, and now jumping in on some Sixers conversation.
Breaking Flyers news today.
Yeah,
by
how about that, right?
Having to juggle all kinds of stuff around here.
They're just rolling. This is just nonstop stuff. That's why Roku wanted to be a part. It's always breaking news in Philadelphia sports, and Roku, of course, making the right choice to come hang out with us with you. We appreciate it. So we have a lot to get into, and we start off with our mailbag questions. Kyle's going to be the one to throw these questions out there and run the question out, and we'll both give our thoughts throughout the show of what we think of the question coming our way. So as we do that, Kyle, what do we have to start some things off here, man?
All right. So, I mean, everyone can, at least on our YouTube audience, can read the headline that was, will the Sixers use their 15th roster spot? Who is a candidate? So I cheated a little bit because that was not the exact question we got, but it is related to that. So our first question comes from Greg Love. So shout out to Greg, who says, I know they probably won't use that last roster spot. That means Greg has been paying attention to what we've been saying all offseason. But he asks, is there any bigger guards that are worth looking at, even as a developmental piece from a summer league team, to just take a flyer? And Devon, I think we probably both have at least one name in mind, but where does your brain go to first when you think of big guard depth if they were to fill out the 15th roster spot?
Yeah, big guard depth. The funny part, real fast, is just going back to us being at Summer League in July and in Las Vegas, and you talking to how do you pronounce his last name again? The big guy.
Keve Aluma.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a shame because you look at him, you like some of the things that he did, and see if he can get a training camp invite. Maybe have that final roster spot non-guaranteed to give him an opportunity to see if he can latch on to the NBA squad. Unfortunate for him, but if we go guards, I've been talking about this name for a while, and it's not because of his height. He doesn't pass the Kyle Neubeck height test. But what he does is he's a physical guard. And I'm going with Dennis Smith Jr. here because of the style of play that we have now seen him translate and turn into. When I brought this name up before, I've got not a lot of pushback in the chat of why Dennis Smith Jr., why are you still going there? We were talking to Tyler Zulli, who we were together in the past, and he was always my guy. And before, he was a lottery pick that you looked at, top 10 pick, arguably top 5 before he was selected 9th overall by the Dallas Mavericks, that the talent was there for his offensive production, running a team and all. That has since gone away, but he has turned himself into a reliable backup point guard with a more defensive-minded focus than he was previously as a point guard coming into this league with the Mavericks, the Knicks, and finding his way out of the league. He had to transform his game into something totally different. That has gone away because of the Reggie Jackson addition and even the Kyle Lowry, and trying to maybe find some minutes for Jared McCain, their first round, their overall 16th overall pick in the first round. But if they were to go with another big guard, and again, it may not pass the height test, but it's more of what it means for the defensive side of things for the Sixers in the backcourt. And then certainly with Nick Nurse liking to extend the defensive pressure 75, 80 feet away from the basket, putting that pressure like we saw from Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre, DeAnthony Melton when healthy, having that type of defender out there on the floor to cause some havoc, to frustrate and disrupt the flow of getting into their offensive sets, maybe cause a backcourt violation. That's the reason why I kept going with Dennis Smith Jr. Not because of the offense, even though he is an improved shooter from what he was in the past. He's still not great, but he's an improved shooter for what we're talking about. If we're going big guard, for me, I'm gonna stick to the script. I'm gonna stand for Dennis Smith Jr., and that's where I'm going, Kyle.
Number one Dennis Smith Jr. fan in Philadelphia.
Yes.
So you brought up the lack of shooting thing. You know where I'm going.
100%.
It's Markelle Fultz.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I can't believe he honestly is still a free agent, right? Maybe he's been holding out for hoping he could get some more money, struck out, and now there's really no urgency, right? Like, he will probably get a deal with somebody. It's just, where is the best spot for me? But if you're Markelle, you could come back to Philadelphia, where I think if you come back as a minimum guy, and people were very supportive of him during his journey here, during his struggles, I think they'd welcome him with open arms. Like, hey, he's coming back, is ready to prove something as an end-of-roster player. I think importantly for the Sixers, he is much different than those other guards on the roster. He's got a big frame. Importantly, and this is a topic we're going to get to later, he's a good rebounder for his position. Yep. He doesn't play a ton of minutes or hasn't played lots of minutes in recent years, but he's a guard who's pulling down, 5 or 6 rebounds per 36 minutes that he's playing. That's a good rate. And that's a guy that he goes up and attacks the ball with 2 hands, the thing we always talk about on this show. He also offers a bit of secondary, not even secondary, like lead guard creation. Yep. If you ask him to, he can give you a bit of driving ability, get to the rim and score from time to time. Good transition player, still has the mid-range jumper and the floaters that he can work on. Now, obviously, the fit is clunky because he doesn't shoot anymore. Like, does not take 3-point shots. Really. Only. He's a mid-range and in guy. And I think we already saw you don't want to play him with Joel Embiid necessarily. You certainly don't want to play him with Andre Drummond, who needs the paint. And you don't want to. And if Yabusele ends up playing and you're playing a lot of these big boys around the basket, you really need floor spacing. But if he were to come here on just a flyer type of contract, and he is somebody that offers a different skill set. And look, with all the problems, he's a good ball handler too, like very creative, shifty player, can move side to side, all that. Is he going to stick in the league moving forward with where his jumper is and where his health has been, frankly? He's only played 43 games last year. He missed most of 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
Coming off a knee injury. He's had all kinds of problems. He's still only 25, 26 though. So there's upside there. I think it will probably have to be realized elsewhere, but he's the big name that's left on the market that if Daryl or one of these other guys is like, hey, we just want to take it's a home run swing. If we don't connect, he's on a minimum contract, doesn't really matter. If we do, there's still some untapped shot creation upside in there.
And look, with Rico Hines and how much is put on Rico Hines to be the developmental player that he is, who knows? And there might just be that one that can maybe unlock that a little bit more when it comes to that outside shooting. Markelle Fultz thing makes sense because of everything you just laid out. The defense, both of the names. And Boots says Devon loves himself some Dennis Smith Jr. Yes, I do, but I might as well stick with it as we talk about this conversation late in August. But both of them are 2 fearless guards that we talk about, and both have a defensive profile that they could still use when it comes to when you point out that there are only a certain number of defensive players on the Sixers roster. As much as we've touted this is a great offseason for Daryl Morey, there's still some questions with some players on this roster when it comes to the defensive side of things. Markelle Fultz and Dennis Smith Jr., of course, do have a profile next to their names of two of the better defensive guards in the NBA, even on the minimum contract. You understand what they're doing. They're still relatively young in this league where they're still hungry enough. They will both be coming in on a minimum contract, maybe not guaranteed, and they still have to fight for that final roster spot. And I think for Dennis Smith Jr., I know for Dennis Smith Jr., that's been the case for the last couple of seasons. So he's had to earn it year after year after year, where Fultz is now in this unique spot where he hasn't been, because even though he has struggled with the shooting and fixing it since leaving Philadelphia, he has had an extension from the Orlando Magic with that guaranteed money in that 4 year, $40 million number where he has that security. So this is new to him, where he has to come in, not new in the sense where he didn't have to do this after the rookie deal because of the question marks that were there. But Orlando was still a young up-and-coming team that figured they could take a swing on a former number 1 overall pick and take that gamble. Now, this is totally different. He hasn't been in this spot since maybe being back in the Scholastic days in the back DMV
he's from area. Bethel,
Maryland?
Something like that.
Yeah, but
maybe Bethesda.
Let's just say the DMV area where he had to earn that number 1 ranking in high school to get to Washington.
No, we went to DeMatha
High School.
DeMatha Catholic in Hyattsville, Maryland.
Shout out B West, no doubt. And so this is different for him. And that Markelle Fultz one is interesting. If I had to choose of the two, and talking with Kyle and Derek about this in the past, I would go Markelle Fultz over Dennis Smith Jr. as much as I like Dennis Smith.
My guess is he will go elsewhere because to the point you made opening it up between Reggie, Kyle, Jared McCain, Maxey's going to play a ton of minutes. I think if you're not a guard who can shoot, you're going to struggle to get playing time because they have guys who can be the table setter, right? And that's what Markelle would be, certainly. If you're not a floor spacer in the, like some different type of player, but people have brought up Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker, you could see like, okay, maybe he could fit here because he's an instant offense guy you can give the ball to go score, but also can get hot as a streaky shooter that I don't think that Dennis Smith or Markelle have that in them. So I'm curious to see where they end up and, see how that plays out. Like, I think it's probably time to take another mailbag.
Yeah, just real fast. The other thing is with that final spot, maybe they just simply go into training camp and don't worry about it. And
that's the thing. I think we all believe that's. Are you talking about on the players' end or the team's end?
Team's end.
Okay.
Because
I think I would be shocked, honestly, at this point if they sign somebody before training camp. Right. I think they're going deep into the season with 14 guys unless there's an injury.
And my other point was going to be maybe someone else gets cut from somewhere from another team that they just simply like better for this specific situation that they target at that point. So just to add on to Kyle's question there. By the way, Brian Knight says, save the last spot for Ben Simmons, #sicko for life.
No!
There you go. Let's get to the next question.
No! Somebody resurfaced a video of Kendrick Lamar yelling no. I wish I could throw that on the stream.
By the way, you commented on the Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle video working out together. 2 Australian guys working out.
That place sounded like some gunshots going off with the amount of bricks that are hitting the rim. All right. In the Discord, we have a question from Year-Round DH. What stat will be the most telling about how the Sixers season is going / how their postseason aspirations are developing aside from games played for Joel Embiid? So basically, what are the key stats or things you're looking for that are not health? Because I think we would probably both agree if they're healthy, they're going to win a lot of games.
I would think it's the question that we addressed the other day, which is their defensive ranking in the league.
It's definitely up there.
Yeah, so I would put the defensive ranking. Are they going to be a top 10 team, top 7, top 5, top 3? How good defensively will they be in the league? Because we know they're going to be able to score from Embiid, Maxey, and George. They're going to be able to score. They have a number of other players from Eric Gordon, Kelly Oubre, who will be able to score the basketball also. And if Nick Nurse is as good of a coach as we think he is, they will devise some things where they're going to score over 110 points a game, and you're going to feel good about what they do offensively. Joel Embiid might lead the league in scoring again. So defensively is where it's going to be. Are they still going to be that same type of team where we saw DeAnthony Melton in the starting lineup with Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, PJ Tucker before the trade happened, and then Nick Batum, where they were a good defensive team? They had some issues that maybe Kyle will address in his answer, but they were a good defensive team. And when we talked about this the other day, we all said they have the personnel collectively as a team. You have some good individuals that might be on an all-NBA defensive team at the end of the year, but as a team to anchor things from Embiid to George, Oubre, Martin, and on down the line, where they should be much better ranking-wise as an overall team defense once this season gets underway, to the question of when we get to the middle of the season and then the postseason where we say, all right, they have figured it out. Their defense is this good where they should finally make it past the second round, hopefully into the Eastern Conference Finals and then the NBA Finals. So my answer would be the defense being a top 5 defensive team maybe.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I'm going to present a different idea,
Sure.
but I think they're connected. I'm paying attention to purely rebounds per game for Joel Embiid, and here's why. I think they have the recipe, the tools, the personnel, and the coach to be that elite defensive team. The one thing that I think can stop them from being a team that gets enough stops to be in that top 3, top 5 type territory is if they don't rebound the ball well enough. Like we've talked a lot all summer about, well, they have the switchable wings. Joel should be in position to rebound more because he's not going to have to step out as much. They'll be able to just slide guys across matchups and there'll be more jumpers and Joel will get early position and all that. But I think his rebounding numbers will show two things. One, it's that initial success of the defense. How good is Paul George? How good is Caleb Martin? How good is Kelly Oubre? So on down the line at guarding the yard, guarding their guy, keeping them in front of them. Number two, it's going to tell us something about Joel's health, right? Like I think what we saw in the Olympics and this summer was a combination of Joel's wearing this gigantic brace, right? You can see it every time he goes down the floor, and his mobility was not what I think we would want it or expect it to be. And some of it was taking it easy in the earlier games and not dialing it up and not necessarily prioritizing rebound as much as he should. I think people forget now, 2018-19, when Jimmy Butler arrived here, when Ben Simmons was here, Joel was rebounding almost 14 a game.
Yep.
Like he had, I think it was like 13.5, 13.6. Whatever it is, that's a big number.
With the number that we like at the scoring of the 27 with the 13 boards.
And so the point I'm trying to make is that was with Ben Simmons on the team. And Ben Simmons was a very good rebounder, obviously, in his own right. And I think that's why I brought up yesterday, rebounding is always a team stat to me outside of those very elite guys that can just do it on their own. And so I think Joel's rebounds, his rebounds per game will tell a lot about what is everyone else doing. Are they guarding their guy? Are they boxing their guy out effectively? Are they just setting up to run in transition? Like what's the risk reward of staying back to help rebounding versus Paul George is out, Tyrese Maxey's out looking for the outlet, and how are they doing that? And so I'm putting a high burden on Joel this year. I'm not joining this chorus of people that we've had lately that have said he's a bad rebounder, but he definitely goes through stretches where I'm like, hey, his technique isn't good enough. His approach there isn't good enough, isn't consistent enough. And I want to see the focus to it on a game-to-game basis that maybe we haven't seen all the time. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. I think it'll tell you a lot about Joel individually, and I think it will play a huge factor in that defensive success that you're talking about.
And coming off of the Olympics, one of the things that as the Olympics kept going along, you saw where we're so accustomed to Joel Embiid snatching the board and pushing the break himself, which they don't mind and I don't mind. But there are times when I do want him to give the rock up and allow the other guys to push the break, find that success early. And if he happens to be a trail man, whether it's running down the middle of the floor for a finish at the rim or that trail three-pointer that he's very good at, he was willing to give the basketball up so quickly now in the group play where you're saying, all right, he sees that there is something there, which he used to do in the past with Ben Simmons. He had no problem giving the ball up to Ben Simmons when things changed, and later on with Maxey and Harden. But there was a stretch where he had to snatch that ball off the board and turn and go himself. So with that rebound, start that break, as you just pointed out. Get the basketball out. Let that transition start to happen. Have the floor unbalanced for you to have that advantage on the break against that set where the defense is not set, and put them on their heels and try to get yourself an easy 2 to 3 points and maybe even some foul trouble as well for the opposition.
To your point, the more he does it himself, that frees up those other guys to run.
Yes.
And then he doesn't have to get up the floor, right? If you put in that effort to rebound and you free up Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Paul George, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, like just keep going down and down the list, and they get quick transition buckets, we see him sometimes just do the do like kind of loiter up the floor and get the half court because he knows they're going to score.
Yep.
If you do the work as a rebounder, you will not have to do as much work running the floor. You can free the other guys up, and then you just hang back on defense, and we can see that guy that you and I and Derek have been hoping for, that is that apex defender that is going to drive this team.
And trust him.
Yes.
Because I immediately think about an overhead kick-ahead pass off a rebound to LeBron James. LeBron James caught it over the defense, laid it up.
Sure wish they could get that LeBron guy on this
Exactly.
team.
That would be very nice. Well, you have a little bit of a lower level on Paul George. But it's because he trusted LeBron James, to your point. Trust your teammates that they are going to do exactly that if you make the right pass, you put it on the right spot, and they'll go up and finish that play in that rhythm. So trust it. The kick ahead, if he's going to push the break, fine. But don't do that, as you said.
Yes.
Don't do that. Guess what? Take that
ball moves faster
dribble,
than you do, buddy.
Boom, and then bang, because he would hit Curry right on that right side across half court before he even stepped over half court, because he trusted, again, it was Steph Curry. Trust Tyrese Maxey like I know you do, Paul George, and everybody else, and I'm sure the success will follow. Well, we have a lot more mailbag questions that we have to get to. So as we keep that going and we keep talking about all that, let's make sure that we jump in with some of our good sponsors here. We come back, we'll keep the mailbag questions rolling on this Tuesday mailbag here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Also want to tell you, as we start things off here, I'm just going to tell you about Rite Aid. Rite Aid is a fantastic play. We're starting to, it's the end of the summer. It stinks. It's unfortunate, right? It stinks, but
got to start thinking about fall allergies.
Got to think about the fall allergies, man. It always starts for me with the spring and the fall, where the early part of the spring and the early part of the fall, sneeze attacks.
That pollen will get you, baby.
Oh, man, I'm going after. The fall allergies can begin as early as August and last into November. It gets Kyle, it gets me, it gets Derek, it gets my daughters, so you have to be prepared for that. The main culprits are the ragweed and the mold of the other allergens that also include plants such as sagebrush, tumbleweed, pigweed, dust mites, pet dander, and fur. The guys have their pets. I don't have that, but I definitely have that. I need to dust a little bit more at home. I got to be better at that. I will be better at that. The allergic reactions occur when your body misidentifies a substance such as pollen that's harmful to the body, and then your immune system releases histamines to fight off the allergens. Interestingly enough, these same histamines are also the cause of your allergy symptoms such as the runny nose, itchy or watery eyes, or the wheezing that happens. And that's why antihistamines, medication that suppresses the amount of histamine in your body, are often the first line of defense to treating your allergy symptoms. So what can you get for that relief during the allergy season? Sign up for Rite Aid Rewards. Emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. Use a dehumidifier. Shower frequently after being outside because you don't want to take that into the house. And if you're like, oh, I'm so lazy, I'm tired, I just need to get in the bed, you're taking that with you in your bed, and then you're going to have a terrible night and a terrible morning. Check the pollen counts as well. Wear protective masks when gardening so it doesn't affect your breathing and get it all into your system, your pores as well. Still not enough relief? Ask a Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication doesn't work for you, like a decongestant. That might be necessary. You can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season.
And guys, if you clear up that congestion, if your allergies are feeling well, maybe you can make a crystal clear call on your Mint Mobile cell phone. Thanks to our friend Ryan Reynolds, who called me up. Thank you, Ryan. Shout out Wrexham FC, AFC. When I heard for a limited time, Mint Mobile wireless plans are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, I said, Ryan Reynolds, come on, you got to be pulling my leg. There's no way that that's possible. Sounds too good to be true. It's not too good to be true. They sell wireless service online, no retail stores, no salespeople. They just deliver premium phone plans directly to you. They cut out all the middleman, all the nonsense you don't need, and they pass those savings directly to you, the customer. So thank you, Deadpool, for that. Mint Mobile's here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. We love that. Love having coverage everywhere. I switched off of a different wireless carrier. We won't name that carrier here, not trying to disparage any, hardworking people. But Mint Mobile, my coverage since I moved over there has been better than it has ever been, including in my house that has some dead spots, not with Mint Mobile. And the setup process was great, easy, painless. Brought my phone number over. You can bring a new phone. You can get a new phone number, bring all your existing contacts, use your own phone so you don't have to do anything more or less than you want to. So ditch the overpriced wireless. Join up with Mint Mobile to get this new customer offer, your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Sixers. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
We love our family here in the chat. It's certainly here now joining on the Roku TV. We appreciate it. Gene, I was looking down the list here, and Gene says, I still have y'all muted, stuck in a meeting with my boss. So this is what
still
we love.
Supporting, man.
In a meeting with the boss and still has us on. Gene, we appreciate it, even though you can't hear us because it's muted. Once you do go back, just know that we shouted you out.
Also, Winona asks, can I get service in Jamaica? I will have to call Ryan Reynolds and ask him specifically.
I think yes.
I don't see why not.
Ryan does movies in Canada, Vancouver, all overseas. You watch one of his movies and they're in
Wrexham
France.
is way overseas.
Of course you can get Mint Mobile in Jamaica. Absolutely. If not, I'm sorry. If I
don't want to speak out of turn. I will make sure and I'll get back to you, Winona. How about that?
All right, cool. But we appreciate everybody checking
Speaking of, actually probably a good segue to one of the questions that we got asked. Sean W. asked us, do we know or have any rhyme or reason for the destinations Nurse chooses for training camp? Denver last year, a slight correction, it was Fort Collins, but Denver, Colorado-ish, like an hour outside of Denver, I think it was.
Yeah.
And the Bahamas this year just seems random. First of all, I am never going to criticize a coach for putting training camp in the Bahamas.
Never.
So even if it was for an absolutely arbitrary, silly reason, and I don't know what it is quite yet, I'd be like, great, Nick Nurse. What a leader. What an inspirational guy at the head of the team.
Shake that man's hand when we see him in Bahamas, man.
So I will tell you what we were told last year on the Colorado training camp was twofold. One, the altitude training was something that I think was in Nick Nurse's mind. Like, hey, we get in there in the preseason. It's a little bit tougher to train there. You do acclimate and get used to it. But as these guys are trying to get into their initial shape for the season, Nick and the performance staff and everybody else said this is a better way to start. The other one, and I think he has said this publicly at some point, although maybe not at like a press conference, was he wanted to be kind of within striking distance of the champs. Like he wanted to be in their territory and bring the Sixers close to who at the time were the reigning champions, the Denver Nuggets, and start their season thinking like, this is the bar we have to hit. That's all we care about. So to the point we've brought up recently where they don't care about the second round thing it matters in terms of public perception.
Yes.
Their bar is winning the title. It is not, hey, we need to advance one round further. And so that's where they wanted to start last year, was setting that championship bar, looking at Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, all those guys, and saying, that's who we need to compete with.
So why not use Harvard's campus in Massachusetts to be closer to the champs, the Boston Celtics?
Because the Bahamas are much nicer.
It's much better. Yes. and that's good. So, by the way, I did get a check-in here on the phone while we were talking about the Met, because someone I know very close to has had it for many years and said, yes, you can get the international service.
Hey, look at that. See,
Met.
Winona.
Look at that, Winona.
Service provider Devon Gibbons over here.
Got you covered,
Getting
Winona.
you answers already.
So your Mint Mobile will work while we're in the Bahamas for training camp.
Perfect.
Yeah. So why is Bahamas? We don't know yet. But we're not going to argue against it because we'll be there for training camp.
I'm going to bring my vacation shirts that you guys see on the show from time to time that Devon saw when we went to a Grateful Dead concert in Las Vegas.
Rocking my Dancing Bears hat right now. Shout out Yabu, Gershon Yabusele,
the Dancing Bear himself.
Yes. So, yeah, man. So we'll be there. And look, there are a lot of stories coming out of training camp, which is why we're talking about so many things here with this mailbag, the things that we've discussed since returning from Las Vegas. There have been so many storylines. There are going to be so many storylines. And they're probably going to be one of the more talked about teams at the start of the season. So whether it's the Bahamas, Harvard, Colorado, Iowa, wherever it is, they are still going to be discussed.
No
as
offense
one of
to the good people of Iowa.
No offense.
I'm glad that the Bahamas was chosen over.
So am I.
Nick Nurse's.
That means I can wear the bucket hat. Kyle, we can bring out the bucket. I'm going to get you a bucket hat for the Bahamas so we can rock our bucket hats.
I have an Adidas bucket hat.
Whatever works.
I'll bring it out from
Bring it on the trip.
Not as stylish as yours, unfortunately.
You'll be just fine with your Shady Rays in the bucket hat in the Bahamas. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Sure, we'll have an opportunity to enjoy the sun and maybe some pool as well. But
I'm getting on that water slide.
Definitely got to get on the water slide. Yeah, I'll see where we are at that point. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a good one, and I hope it's the start for them and for all of you, the Sixer fans. Hope it's the start of something good for this upcoming 24-25 campaign, because they put this roster together for a very good reason, and that's with the championship aspirations, as Kyle mentioned. And if that's what is in their focus, that's what they're straight ahead looking at, which they should be, then hey, if the Bahamas is it for them, they can start there and then they can celebrate there at the end of the season as being NBA champions for the first time since 1983.
Listen, I would love a start and end in the Bahamas.
That'd be perfect. That'd be perfect.
Anytime you can get down there for any reason is a good reason.
Martian Lynch, hola, ho veto. There in the chat. Shout out Jay-Z.
All right, so back to the basketball. We have M. Golden Pine in our Discord.
M. Golden Pine.
Who asks, this looks like the deepest team to start the season in the Embiid era. Any other contenders? The pre-Morey teams were pretty thin. And so the first condition was to start the season, I think, right? Because we could probably say, after they made deadline acquisitions in multiple seasons, they were able to pad out their depth and they go into the playoffs as a deeper team. Do you think this is the deepest potential opening night team they've had since Joel has been in the pros?
I would say yes. To start the season, because number one, you have 3 all-star NBA players with Embiid, Maxey, and now adding George. And then you go with the other collective talent where Caleb Martin has been a starter on a very important Miami Heat NBA Finals appearing team, where he also had a big impact in the year that we talked about, just going nuts against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Also including Kelly Oubre and what he's shown at his best as a 6-man who can come in and give you 16 to 17 off the bench without blinking. Then you start to go down the line, the backup center position with Andre Drummond. having a focus on the shooting with Eric Gordon, who is, again, a longtime starter in the NBA with some really good offensive teams for the Houston Rockets, the LA Clippers early on, and even as of late with the Phoenix Suns being a part of that team last year where they did not achieve what they wanted to, but that was a lot of good talent on that basketball team, and he was a big piece of that. Unfortunately for them, he had to start. In this case, it would be a luxury for him to start on this group because of what they have as we talk about the depth. And then when we start to go down the list of Kyle Lowry being a big part of it, Reggie Jackson, where you can choose who, of course, based on what they do and they're showing at training camp, of who deserves the minutes. But there could be a day, like we've discussed, Kyle might play 2-3 straight games. He might have a day off. Reggie Jackson then comes in, plays well, and he's playing those 2-3 straight games. Or the battling with Jared McCain as a young rookie that has talent, may not be ready, but he's a good, talented young player that could develop into something really good in this league. So I would say this one is really good. And by comparison, if we were to look at some of the other teams before the Jimmy Butler team, because they did not start with that one, I would say the year before that, 17-18 with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and then you factor in having J.J. Redick coming in to turn that thing around where it became what it became with that 18-19 team. So that's why I would say yes, but that 17-18 team was really good with those three headlining the team. Robert Covington turning himself into something. Markelle Fultz was at least there to start the campaign as a former number 1 overall pick. So I would say that Dario Saric also on that squad.
Yeah, I think if you're just talking about the number of playable guys, I think it's this year and it's not close.
Not even close.
Because I think legitimately, unless Jared McCain as a rookie just can't get on the floor, I think all 14 guys can play, right? And I don't think that that's basically ever been the case, right? There's always been a couple guys end of the bench who are like clear G League guy, like second round pick who's got to develop, whatever. Even, a couple years ago, I think that there's James Harden full season coming into the year. They have a good amount of talent, right? They had the top 3 guys in Joel, Tyrese, James Harden. You have Tobias, you have DeAnthony Melton, Matisse Thybulle, who was, I'd never loved, but was at least like a playable wing type. PJ Tucker, D House. You have a couple of fringe guys, but that was like a Montrezl Harrell before he completely went off the cliff. So you have like 8 or 9 guys that I think were at least rotation level guys. I think that was probably the case in the Jimmy Butler season as well at points. And I think to start the season, they had more playable guys that it whittled down to. We basically have 6 guys after the deadline because they made the consolidation trades.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of volume, they've never had this many guys who, if you turn to any of them on a given night, I don't think you would look at Nick Nurse and be like, oh, it's crazy that Reggie Jackson is playing, or it's crazy that Eric Gordon is closing this game, or Yabusele played 25 minutes tonight because they needed rebounding and power and whatever. And that's the beauty of the team, the way that they've set it up, despite the fact that it's a big 3, right? Like in today's league, we've talked about it a lot. It's so much harder now to build a big 3, let alone build one and have playable depth around them. So I think that's probably the best testament to the front office's offseason. You were able to have your cake and eat it too. You get the 3 star level players, and they filled the rest of the roster out really nicely.
Yeah. So this one, it clears every other team to start the season. And even when you bring up that Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, J.J. Redick was still here, your 6, that's
their top end was great.
That was, and
then your
best.
6th guy was James Ennis, basically. And that's no disrespect to James Ennis.
And he
was a playable wing.
And he filled his role for what he was. But guess what? You didn't have enough behind where you started going Amir Johnson, Greg Monroe. The issues start to really show themselves in that Toronto series where, unfortunately, losing in that Game 7. So that's a good question, though, because they put together something really good here, and we've acknowledged it. We need to acknowledge a few other friends before we get to some more.
You might even say mailbag. The future is bright, Devon,
yes.
for us and our partners and for all our mailbag question askers. But yeah, we'll talk about a couple more of our friends.
Some
and then
really
we'll be
good
back
ones.
With some more mailbag questions in just a second. So guys, you hear about it a lot. It's the summertime. Devon was just saying, man, it's really sad. Summer's coming to a close soon. Labor Day's coming up.
Too
it's
fast.
Like the official end of all things bright. Shady Rays has you covered no matter what season that it is. So we keep saying get ready for the season ahead. Get ready for all the seasons ahead. That fall, winter, when the sun's coming off of the snow and it's so bright. And I know us Northeasters have to deal with these problems all year round. Shady Rays always has you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Devon handed me these ones. These are not my Shady Rays, but we'll wear a different set that are just hanging out on our set today. Durable frames, crystal clear optics. They are the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And there are hundreds of options to choose from. So you'll definitely find a pair that matches your style and works for you. These, as I said, are not my pair. This is like a studio pair. Maybe these are Devon's.
I was just putting them in the frame, but he's so good.
No, he handed them to me. I put them right on.
Hey, look at that.
Shady Rays always has something for you. I wear them in the car. I keep a pair. I won't say in the car because I don't need anybody in Philadelphia, knocking on my window while I'm not there. Rays. But when I'm walking my dog, when I'm at the beach, when I'm outside doing work in the summertime on my house. And here's the best part, guys. If your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't need to sweat it because Shady Rays has the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. These are. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
And I think you're going to need your Shady Rays on September 7th. Just in a few weeks.
Why is that, Devon?
Because we are collaborating with our good friends from TrueMark for the TrueMark Pickleball Tournament on September 7th at Upper Dublin Sports Center in Ambler, PA. That's from 1:30 to 5. So that's the prime time when all the sun is out there. It's going to be a beautiful day, we hope. And you'll have your Shady Rays sporting them out there for this great TrueMark Pickleball Tournament. TrueMark Financial Care Foundation is hosting this pickleball tournament to raise money for financial education in our local communities. For those of you who were at the PHLY golf outing in July, you might remember our friends from TrueMark, and this is to benefit their foundation charity. It's a round robin, meaning it's a fun, non-competitive event. I don't know how you feel about that. No such thing. We'll have a certified pickleball pro on site to overview the game for anyone who's never played before. I have not, so I'm going to be talking to that pickleball pro about what needs to happen. So no need to have prior experience for the day. The paddles and the pickleballs will be made available for you to use for free. The cost to play is $50 to benefit the charity. All players will get a swag bag from TrueMark and PHLY. If you want to get your company involved as a sponsor, have your logo on display at the event, they're selling a variety of sponsorships that start from $200 to $1,000 to benefit this great charity. Even if you don't want to play pickleball, you can still support the event. There will be food and beer trucks on site. Percentage of the proceeds will go to charity as well. Music, cornhole, other lawn games, 50-50 raffles, plus fun prizes and giveaways on site as well. So if you're going to be there, we'll be there hanging out Saturday, September 7th. Hope to see you there, 1:30 to 5. And as you do, the best part, as a PHLY fan, you get 10% off and the discount on registration. Just register at truemark.com/PHLY pickleball.
Man, I can never put on sunglasses on this show without 15 jokes about me looking like a federal agent.
Detective Neubeck.
Being put in the chat. So
it's mostly
not every white guy in sunglasses is a police officer, just for the record. Anyway, I think we have some. We've had some super chats come in, so we probably add those.
Let's run those
to the mailbag.
Real time.
Real time says, who wins a 3-on-3 out of the PHLY trio?
Interesting question.
It should be us. We could put the Papa Shot. I mean, not that Papa Shot is real basketball.
Yeah.
But if I put the Papa Shot standings up on the screen, or we send it to Brenna, you would see we are 1, 2, 3 in the standings.
Yes, we are.
Most of the office has not participated, but don't let that dissuade you from betting on the basketball show.
So, yes. I would probably put us up there, although I know Bo's very competitive. Zach plays in some basketball tournaments, what they talk about on the show, on their show. Who will fill out the third
Mouse
there?
in the house.
Mouse in the house.
I'm Mouse in the house in ZB. Sorry. I'll throw one mean elbow and he's done.
Even with my bad Achilles, I'm going by somebody. Speed. I'm going to the basket. For the Flyers, I don't know Charlie and Bill's basketball game, so I don't know.
Listen, if we tried to play hockey, I could tell you I would lose. I can't speak to Devon's.
I can't even stand up on skates, so I'm out. They win on that one. And then the Phillies, Jamie's a good basketball player. I do know that.
Renee's a great athlete.
a Hall of Famer.
Yes,
so,
great athlete.
Yeah, so that's going to be some competition there.
Yes.
So definitely some competition, but I say we take it. I mean, we might as well sit there and be confident about our games. I know Derek can play. I've seen him play. I know Kyle can play. We're winning. Sorry, everybody else. We love you. Welcome to the Roku TV PHLY family here because we just gave ourselves the credit on this one. We're winning that one. Let's go to the next super chat from Jake. Can someone please ask Joel Morey about Joel Embiid losing 15 pounds? It's most important thing we need heading into the season, and nobody seems to ask either about it when given the opportunity.
So I will take this as the person who I think is there more often day to day to ask questions. I'd pose, this is not a shot at Jake or anybody else we agree. I have said many times on this show, I think Joe would be better off playing at a lighter weight, less stress on the knees, in theory, better mobility, so on and so forth. I would like for you to brainstorm a few ways to ask someone that you deal with every day, hey, what do you think about losing weight? Because there is not a diplomatic way to do this. And I have asked Nick and Daryl and some of these guys, like, hey, have there been any conversations with Joe and the medical team of like, does he need to, let's say, reimagine his body a little bit? And like, what's the approach you would take there? Or putting him, I bring up swimming a lot. Can you put him in the pool more? But in terms of like, if they list him at 275, it's very difficult for me or anybody else for that matter to go in on media day and be like, hey, so why isn't he at 260? Like, that's just, there's no artful way to do that, really. So it is a
I say Brett Brown was the best because he would just simply say coming into the best fitness
career
base.
Best shape and all that. Like,
the fitness base.
Good conditioning is ultra important for all these guys, but especially so for Joel, given that his body doesn't hold up as well as other guys' base level. And so he has to hold himself to a higher standard. I think discussion about it is fine. I just think where it gets into tougher territory is like, hey, so why are you not skinnier? Like that type of stuff. It's like, to start the year, I could have a conversation about Joe, like, hey, what did you work on physically to try to hold up? Or like, what's the plan for the season to try to, lessen the load on your knees, your feet, your lower extremities? We can have those discussions. I wanted you guys to think about that for a second, because it is a little bit tougher than you would think to when you're dealing with people every day. Like if you had a significant other or a sibling or someone you see all the time, like, hey, what's up with you, you fat POS? It's like, that doesn't really fly.
No, it does not. So two things. One is, this is why we talked about Team USA being one of the more important things for Joel Embiid, because he gets the head start. If he keeps things up during this time off before the start of training camp in October, beginning of October, he got the head start by being in some meaningful games, getting himself in some playing shape early for the start of training camp. And then number two, to the point of the Bahamas in your pool, there are going to be plenty of pools in the Bahamas.
There are pools galore
for
Atlantis,
Joel Embiid to decide to get in and do exactly what you're talking about. So those are two reasons
Real
right there.
Time says, my wife says, you looking juicy.
Who, you?
No, he's saying Real Time's wife says to him that if he's packed on a few tomorrow, he's looking juicy. I don't think I could say you looking juicy to anyone here or with the Sixers without committing some sort of HR violation, but I'll keep that in mind for the future.
We appreciate that. That's
I
funny,
certainly
though.
will never say that to any of my loved ones, but because I enjoy sleeping in my own bed and all that.
And certainly not saying that to Joel Embiid in the locker room. All
You're
right.
looking juicy. That's a no Diddy if I've ever heard one.
Let's move on to the next super chat from James Alexander, who just wanted to donate.
James just sent in a donation.
Just wanted to donate. James, we appreciate it. We really appreciate it, James. Thanks for the donation. He has also been active in the chat. I've seen James from the very start of the show, so we appreciate it, James, for the donation.
Winona said, I just tell them to come to the gym with me. I need a gym buddy. So she's going the passive-aggressive route.
There you go.
It's okay, so
I'm not saying it, but
here's
I'm saying
the strategy. I go up to Joel in the locker room and say, Joel, I need a spotter.
Yeah.
I need someone to swim laps with me. Bring your cap and your earplugs. Let's go. And a pair of goggles.
And some goggles, and let's have at it, my man. Let's get the swimming in. That's a pretty good one. Thanks for all the super chats from Real Time, Jake, and James.
We still have some more
questions.
Okay, so Jimmy, with about 1,000 numbers on Twitter that I won't read all of them, says, what are the impressive jobs that Coach Nurse did last season that made you guys feel good or inspired in the coming season and in the playoffs?
Well, one, I thought he did a decent enough job, even though we're big Ricky Council guys here on this show. And it was kind of a bit early on until Ricky really turned himself into a reason for us to talk about him the way that he did. He got away from it a bit, we thought, but hey, he's the coach. He makes the final decision. We saw where Ricky Council did take those Tobias Harris minutes in that Washington game where he really played well in that one. And he earned it the next game also when they came home. We saw him a little bit later in that San Antonio Spurs. Things weren't working out. They got to that extra overtime session. He had to call another number. Ricky plays well in those final few minutes, makes that great pass to Nick Batum in the corner for that three-pointer to really seal the deal in that game against the Spurs. I thought with the things that we talked about that we liked from Toronto, where he would go lineup changes and not be so locked in on things, he wouldn't be line up and game specific. It would just be like, hey, I feel this, go with it. And I thought he did some of that. I would have liked more. But he also dealt with a lot of injuries where Robert Covington was out of the lineup.
That was the tough part.
DeAnthony Melton was out of the lineup. And while I'm not taking him off the hook of some of the issues that he did have, I did appreciate that he was still that creative guy. He was kind of forced to be because of the players that were missing. But I did like the idea, the fact that he still stayed true to that of, I will try different things.
So one individual game I can remember. Do you remember when they played the Kings at home? Joel was hurt, and they used Tobias as the primary Sabonis defender and just completely shut him down in the middle of a long, productive Sabonis stretch during the season. That's a game that stands out for me. I think what jumped out the most, honestly, was it helped that they had Joel. They came out to start last season just ready to go. This has been often a slow starting team. Some of that is because of Joel. Like we're talking about the conditioning and the sharpness. He doesn't always come out of the gate strong, but there was clear buy-in and understanding between all those guys to open the year. And that was in spite of the James Harden thing hanging over all of training camp. Harden was there, but then didn't play in the preseason. And then he's not there to open the year. Obviously, they make the trade and everything just kind of went seamlessly. Like Nick Batum comes in, plays well. Marcus Morris comes in. We didn't even think he was going to get minutes based on what I had heard immediately after the trade. Nick Nurse uses him and he was a helpful rotation player at times. So that I think was the best thing I saw from Nick Nurse last year. The other part of it, you give a lot of credit to the players on this one, but that December stretch of the schedule, a lot of people nationally were like, well, who cares what their record is? Who cares what Joel's stats are? They're playing Washington 17 times, Memphis, all these Detroit, all these terrible teams. Who cares what their record is? But we've seen it with this team in the past where they took those bad teams lightly. And not only did they show up and offer a professional effort, they were blowing teams out so badly in 3 quarters. Joel was able to sit in the fourth quarter.
Yes, he was.
Tyrese Maxey was able to sit for 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were able to rest their guys without having games be in basically any doubt. And so that's a reflection on the team, certainly, but also on the coaching staff. Like, they brought the game plan was sound enough, but also the message got through to these guys like, hey, no screwing around, take care of business. We're going to have an easy month and we're going to win out of like 15 games, 13 or 14 of them, right? And so that's not the tactical X's and O's adjustment type stuff that I think the question is referring to. But I think if you're thinking about what's most important during the 82 games, it's getting to the finish line whole, right? It's preserving your health. And part of how you do that is beating up those bad teams every single time you have the opportunity so that you don't have to overexert Joel the rest of the season, right? Just like keep him at this normal pace. Keep Paul George at this normal pace. Keep Kyle Lowry, Reggie Jackson, these other depth veteran guys. Don't overextend them. That will pay dividends in the end. So I like that from Nick Nurse. But to the point of the question, I want to see more ingenuity. I want to see more flexibility, creativity. And I think given how deep we think the roster is, there's a lot more room for that during this season.
And even if they do have a few injuries bite them during the season, deep roster. So it might be a little easier to adjust in the moment with these certain players. We're going to run out of time here with so many questions that we did have. We had one here that I thought was interesting, even in the chat, that was asking from Jeffrey Stewart, who will handle a crunch time inbounds pass, both the passer and the receiver?
That was like the easy answer in the past.
Yeah. One would be if Kyle Lowry's in the game, Kyle Lowry would probably get that. I would say Paul George, because he can also inbound and then quickly get a dribble handoff.
And you always have to watch the inbounder on those plays. So I think that's a good call on that one.
And depending on Eric Gordon, too, as a veteran guard in this league who trusts just simply for an inbound pass and then finding his spot wherever the play is designed to, if it's 8 seconds left on the clock and it's a tie ball game, Tyrese Maxey gets the pass, Eric Gordon then retreats to somewhere around the perimeter. That's a guy that they have to pay attention to try to hit an open jump shot late in that situation. Caleb Martin, I would imagine, would also be one if he's in that closing lineup. So
the two guys who definitely won't will be Joel, because one, he's not the greatest passer in the world, but two, you want him as a target and a screener. And Tyrese, because you want his speed, and if there's the immediate look, he's the guy who's probably most likely to get open, just navigating those screens. And he's the guy with the quick release, the shooting ability, the driving ability.
And it'd be key to have that shooter with him.
Yes.
Because if he's on the move like that, natural instinct as a defender is, I got to go help my guy who just got beat off the dribble. And then Eric Gordon is over in the corner or in the wing for an opportunity to maybe tie or win the game in that spot.
Yeah. So I like that question. That's a good one. That's one of those tiny little things we're not going to think a lot about now.
But it's a good question.
But once the games come,
and it doesn't execute,
that's what we're focusing
on
in the regular season.
No question about it. No question about it. Well, we've come to the end of the show here for our first time with our good people at Roku TV. And with Roku TV, you got to get used to the roll call, baby, because this is what we do at the end of the show.
Say goodbye to our wonderful people.
Say goodbye to the folks.
All our friends, family, enemies, frenemies, whoever you might be.
Yes.
First of all, thank you to Brenna.
Yes.
Filling in today in the producer's chair.
Back with us on Thursday.
Back with us again later this week. But also thank you to our wonderful people. Eugene Ross,
what up,
who
Gene?
Missed a lot during his meeting, but he's still supporting. We love that.
We love it.
Money Mar, Martian Lynch, Michael B.
What up, Michael B?
Akil McKnight.
Quill, what up?
Jay. Just Jay.
What up, Jay? Always
What's up,
in
Jay?
there, hanging out.
Did I say Brian Knight? Maybe I didn't.
Well,
James Alexander III, who sent a donation in and asked how much for that T-shirt. Glad you asked, James. Go to PHLYlocker.com, and there's that shirt, along with many more available for sale.
Yes.
We also have Aaron, Jake M.
What up, Aaron?
Real Time with Prince Blue. Good to see you as always. Jeffrey Stewart with the late question.
Home.
Yeah, watch those juicy comments, man. I don't want to be getting anybody in trouble. Jim G in the building. Val Host in the building.
Hey, Val.
SB Cole. Remo K. Guys, thank you as always for being here. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button.
Could you get the bell behind your monitor and do us
don't worry about it.
Do us the honors.
Hit the bell icon to get notifications each and every time we go live.
Is.
And if you hit the thumbs up button, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Great to see y'all. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.